Did Ukraine capture a major Russian command post? And is it coming out that the Kremlin may have known about the Kursk incursion, but dismissed it as nothing? Plus, is Russia's defensive strategy now to just let Ukraine have Kursk? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about all of these crazy stories. Okay, first off, let's take a look at the map updates. And you can see, while there hasn't been significant changes, I shouldn't say that, right? There's reportedly, Ukrainian forces have seized Kamyshoye, where there's been reportedly fighting a day ago on the western outskirts of the village. And now, of course, the Russian Ministry of Defense is reporting clashes in the village. So what we're seeing is, again, Ukrainian troops get to the edge and then now are fighting for control of the village itself. This is, of course, I think, a pretty classic Russian move. Bear in mind, again, these are statements from the Russian Ministry of Defense, who are likely identifying these as retrograde, right? And it's like the old Soviet meme that you can tell the war isn't going well because the Soviet army was winning stunning victories in ever more Western towns. So this is likely what we're seeing here, but more significantly, right, we're also seeing a number of other clashes occurring, right, near outside of Ulanok. You could see here, again, along this key road in Martinovka. And most troubling, I think, for the Kremlin is clashes literally several kilometers north of some of these key villages, right? So this is a real sign, I think, that for Russian forces, stabilizing this front line is a long way off. And again, Live UA is always a little conservative. I would actually kind of draw your mental math a bit longer out here, particularly in this salient, because again, generally Ukrainian forces are going to be doing some level of, I'm going to say preparation, right? They're going to be ranging out further, but not so far that it's not useful. So these clashes could refer to, like, for example, the ambushes that we saw on Combat Vet News yesterday, where we saw Ukrainian special forces ambushing reinforcements. There could be something like that. That could be what these clashes refer to. But again, if so, it means that the Ukrainian forces are close to being able to seize this town of, I think it's called Kyanuk. But here's the thing that I think was most interesting is here, tagged in Sumy. This says that Ukrainian forces appear to have captured the command post of the 28th Battalion 60th Motor Rifle Regiment, a unit previously identified as fighting in Orozyne. And that's interesting because Orozyne is actually on literally the other side of the map. You might recall it was a key site of some of the Ukrainian counteroffensive that took place. Let's see if I can find it here. Just got to dig in a little bit. I believe it was right around this region here, if memory serves. But I think the key takeaway here is that this is a unit that was involved in some pretty heavy fighting. And yeah, here we go, Orozyne, right here. So this is a unit that was at one time considered a frontline, one of Russia's better or best defensive units, given that they were, again, thrown into the fight to stop the counteroffensive, right? And then they've been redeployed out of Zaporizhzhia all the way to the north here. But then here's what's really troubling, is that when you have a battalion command post, a battalion is going to be 2,000 or 3,000 troops in Western parlance, probably a bit less given the state of the Russian military. But what you're seeing is that typically in a situation that is under control, right, where command and control is firmly intact, command posts always stay behind the front lines, right? There's not really, you're not supposed to have your command post get seized because you always are pulling the command post back, right, relative to the front line. As the front line ekes backwards, the command post pulls back as well. That's why we haven't really seen either side's command posts of any substance get captured, even in fairly briskly paced offensives. So the fact that we're seeing this happen for any level of command is a sign that, one, Russian forces really don't have a good picture of the battlefield. They didn't know that they were so close to the front line so soon, which meant that, of course, the think of it as like a refresh rate on a computer, right? Where the data, they're getting new data about the state of Ukrainian forces, but that refresh rate is slowing, and it's very slow given the state of Russian command and control and the speed with which the Ukrainian forces are moving. And that means that this headquarters had no idea the Ukrainians were so close or that they had encircled them. I think that's more likely what happened. They may have simply remained in Suja, not realizing that they were being encircled. You might recall that there were several days where it was reported that Ukrainian forces were encircling Sudza, and then when they finally realized how dire the situation was, the command post couldn't retreat. So that, I think, is a really interesting statement, and that is reflective, I think, of the state of command and control all the way up to the Kremlin, honestly. In one leaked call, a Russian lawmaker said that the military actually knew Ukraine was planning to hit Kursk. I think that's probably knew is probably a strong term, right? It's hard to know anything with certainty. But he's probably saying that Russian lawmakers saw a lot of evidence. The military intelligence was accruing more and more evidence that Ukraine was planning to push into Kursk. But he says everyone was told, quote, not to panic, unquote, because, quote, those above know better. And so this is troubling because it says that, yes, the Russian military had an idea that something was going on in Kursk, and that the military was warned about the attack a month ago, but the Kremlin said, don't panic, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. They probably said Ukraine won't do it, or if they do, it'll be a raid like Belgorod, because they think that the Western partners won't let them use their weapon systems inside Russia, right? But this is a really troubling allegation. One, because it means the Kremlin doesn't actually have that tight a control of information. Again, this is from a former member of the State Duma and a retired major general, so someone who's speaking from a place of knowledge, right? And even more troubling, Russia doesn't appear to have done anything in response to Ukraine's incursion, right? And again, as of Monday, Ukraine, having seized 400 miles of Russian territory, says that this isn't part of a sophisticated plan. And again, if this was some kind of gotcha trap, Putin wouldn't have to pull units out of Ukraine to defend Russia. And as you can see, right, Moscow, they're saying, has pulled what Ukraine themselves are calling a relatively small number of troops to bolster the fighting in Kursk. But it's still a sign that, again, Putin doesn't want to be seen as having to slow his own offensive, which for the record, guys, I'm not someone who pretends things don't happen, right? Russia is continuing to drive its offensive into Ukraine. It really doesn't want to slow its offensive efforts. But again, you can see fairly quickly that in a given day, you're looking at 1 to 2 square miles of Russian advances in this key region, and you're seeing that again, you're looking at probably about 10 times that is the current rate that Ukrainian troops are driving into Russia, right? So, and you could see, again, they're routinely publishing more and more villages being captured, right? Reportedly, something between 30 and 80 villages are currently held by Ukraine in Russia. So all this says that Russia was not prepared. This wasn't like a trap. This wasn't some kind of gotcha they were trying to pull. Russia really got caught flat-footed. They really weren't expecting this, and they're doing a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul in order to try to stabilize the situation. Now, guys, if you feel like you are trying to, rob Peter to pay Paul, juggling too many plates or whatever the analogy is, you might need a little bit of energy, right? Then the solution for that is, of course, Strike Gum. I created this inspired by my time in Afghanistan when I had to drink military issue energy drinks to get my caffeine on long combat patrols. I needed to create something better. And that's why I worked with Liquid Core, a manufacturer right here in the United States. They're down in Denver. You can check them out. To create Strike Gum. It has 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece. That means this piece of gum has all the caffeine of a Red Bull or an Amp Energy, but none of the sugar. It's got 90 milligrams or 100 milligrams, of alpha GPC for further cognitive clarity. And the proof is in the pudding, right? Yesterday, literally a third of customers who try Strike Gum, chew it at all, purchase more, which to me says this is what's up. This is the real deal. People know. They're like, listen, if you're an energy drink person, if you're tired of spending $5 a pop on a Red Bull just to drink something that tastes like medicine, then Strike Gum's the solution. Refreshing mint flavor, veteran owned, made in the USA. You want to check out the 5-pack. This is probably your best bet because it gives you a pack in your home office, a pack in your office, glove box, gym bag. That way, wherever you need energy, you don't need to go stop what you're doing and get a Red Bull or whatever. Instead, you just chew some Strike Gum, get back at it. And especially if you're like a cop or I hear from a lot of like nurses or construction workers, guys who use their hands, right? Who can't be hauling around a Red Bull when they're doing their job. That's crazy. But Strike Gum gives them that solution. They just keep it in their pocket. They pop it, chew it. It just, you don't even know that it's an energy drink alternative because it's mint gum. It is mint gum. Smells like mint gum, tastes like mint gum. It's superior in every way. It's the future. Anyway, check it out, strikegum.com. The link is in the description. You can check it out. Okay. So what Russia may simply be deciding that Kursk, they're going to take some L's here. Why? Because they're digging in. Sure. They're digging in 45 miles from the actual front line of Kursk, right? From the border, right? Up to 30 miles from the border of Ukraine, showing that, again, Russian forces digging. This is from OSINT Technical. Let's see if we can pull this up here. I'm just going to make sure because it's Twitter. And part of Russia's actually information strategy here has been to spam adult links so that YouTubers like me can't put them on YouTube. So I got to make sure that I check before I display these things. But you can see here that Russian forces are building a bunch of fortified positions, trying to dig in. But notice they're all around here in this kind of Lagov area. And this is a problem. Understatement of the year. Now, for a couple reasons. First, it would involve ceding something like, I think, 25-30% of Kursk Oblast to Ukraine, right? And that alone is not a great strat, right? You can see here's Kursk Oblast itself. It looks like they're probably trying to dig in. Looks like around here, right? Along this line here. Crucially, it looks like they're trying to dig in near the nuclear power plant, which of course makes a lot of sense. But again, you can end the city of Kursk. Two things that if they were to lose, it would be a massive problem. Again, and you can see that doing so would yield almost a quarter of Kursk Oblast, effectively give it over to Ukrainian forces. And boy, that's a bad look for someone like Putin, who, of course, justifies his massive military spending and tremendous casualties by arguing that it creates a strong and powerful Russian military. But again, it's hard to understate. All right, let's see if we can look up the most economically powerful oblasts, Russia, right? Kursk, I think, is here we go. Here's a list of federal subjects by GDP per capita, which is not quite right, but still pretty good, a reflection of overall productivity in different regions. And you could see that, again, some of these oil-producing oblasts, but Kursk is a fairly economically important city, right? I guess 41 out of 87. So it's middle of the road, right, in terms of economic value and productivity. But what that should tell you, though, is that, again, it represents about a million total people. It is I'm trying to see if it has an economic ranking. It has a rank in terms of population. It's about 46. So it's punching above its weight in terms of Russian federal subjects. It's a valuable place. I'm trying to think of an analogous state here. I'd say it's like a middle of the road U.S. state. So probably like maybe a Washington or an Oregon, right? A valuable U.S. state. Imagine if China was to seize and hold 25% of something like Washington or Oregon. We'd say, hey, what the hell? What are we spending all this on the military for if the Chinese are holding substantial portions of U.S. territory? That's the kind of thing that Putin has to deal with. The problem is, of course, in the United States, if we had a politician gut the military like that, we'd fire them and elect someone new. But Putin can't be fired, or at least if he gets fired, it's going to be bad, right? Dictators tend to not have great endings. So Putin needs this territory back. And frankly, it's already been pretty humiliating for him. So the fact that he's stuck digging in here, trying to at least protect the major city of Kursk and its nuclear power plant, is a sign that things are not going the way Russia hopes. But even more troubling, this is a classified ad from Russia's largest classified website. It's listing construction jobs for workers to build fortifications and trenches in Kursk, with salaries being 5 to 7 times the national average. Right. So for context, right, national average salary in the United States is I think like $50K. So this is like someone offering you $250,000 to go dig trenches, again, in Chinese controlled Oregon or whatever, in this scenario. Is it possible to work remotely? One can hope. But again, this is, you may remember, though, that digging fortifications was also code. That's what they told a lot of Bangladeshi workers who signed up thinking they were going to be guards or literally just digging rear area trenches. And instead, they quickly found themselves wearing plate carriers and charging in one-way missions against Ukrainian positions. So again, you see those kind of ads. If you're a Russian citizen, guys, think twice. Think twice. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Do me a favor, hit subscribe on the channel. I really appreciate it, and it helps tell YouTube that I'm one of the legit Ukraine content creators. I'm not one of these Russian trolls that have been popping up more and more. So thank you, guys. Huge thank you to our Colonel tier members like Bill Collier, Robin Colburn, Gaius Marning, Eugenia Cuesta, Chris Gorsuch, Fran Zacharias, and AN90, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. I could not do this without you guys. Your support is the thing that makes this possible. Thanks, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.